Hey there, bibliophiles and those raising bibliophiles. Without ratings and warning labels, knowing which books are appropriate for your children to read is like navigating wild terrain without a map and a compass. I don't know about you, but I have been burned more than once handing my child a book that I thought was clean and appropriate for them to read. I'm a fellow mom, educator, reading specialist, and literary enthusiast trying to find great books for my children and yours to read. So if you're looking for a real review from a mom with a biblical worldview, then welcome and enjoy this week's book review. So this week's book review is The Candymakers by Wendy Mass, and this is a delightful middle grade novel full of wonderful characters that develop really a lot of intrigue, but they're also very peculiar. And so the story opens from Logan's point of view. He is the Candymaker's son, and then it is a very big day for him as it is marking the beginning of a candy making competition for 12-year-olds. So before I go any further, I'm going to read a little bit of the opening of the book to you just to give you an idea of the author's writing style and hopefully to show you a little bit of the beginning of the character for Logan. And I'll talk about the other characters as we go on. So chapter 1, Logan didn't have to open his eyes to know that morning had arrived. The sweet smell of cotton candy wafting into his room worked better than any alarm clock. He rolled over so his nose nearly touched the air vent. You might think that if your bedroom were inside a candy factory, your bed would be shaped like a lollipop. But Logan had gotten rid of the lollipop-shaped bed last month when he turned 12. It had become uncomfortable not being able to bend his knees while he slept. Logan loved the start of a new day, when the air was thick with possibilities, and in his case, with the smell of chocolate, caramel, nougat, and spun sugar. The breeze through his open window brought the room to life. The pages of his comic books rose and fell as if they were taking deep breaths. Paper drawings on the walls fluttered. The fur of his stuffed dragon rippled, making it appear to be moving very quickly without actually moving at all. Logan focused his attention on his breath, as he did first thing every morning. He breathed in and breathed out. With each breath, he recounted the little things he was grateful for. The new day, being here to enjoy it, his parents, the factory, all the people who worked there. In, out, in, out. He matched his rhythm with the familiar hums and whirs of the candy machines powering up for the day. The sizzle of licorice root on the stove made him pause, mid-inhale. Soon his mother would start scraping cinnamon bark onto the oatmeal she had made each morning, and he always liked to be in the kitchen for that part. "So what are we going to do today?" his dad sang outside Logan's door. "Make some candy," Logan replied automatically, his voice still scratchy. "And why are we going to do it?" Without waiting for Logan to answer, his father continued the chant as he did every morning. "To make the whole world smile." "To make the whole world smile," Logan hummed to himself as he hopped out of bed to dress. All the factory workers wore white collared shirts and tan pants. Those who worked outdoors wore shorts. Logan didn't officially work for the factory yet, but he wouldn't think of wearing anything but the official uniform during the day. Plus, all his play clothes were in piles on the floor. Truth be told, most things in Logan's room were in piles on the floor. His parents had long since given up asking him to clean it. Who would spend time cleaning when there were so many exciting things to do right outside the door? To his surprise, he heard his mother beginning to scrape the cinnamon bark already. He turned to look at the clock on his desk. They usually didn't eat breakfast for another half hour. Then his breath caught in his throat. The other contestants in the Confectionery Association's annual new candy contest would be arriving any minute. How could he have forgotten? But even as he asked himself that question, he knew the answer. Having 3 other kids spend 2 whole days at Life is Sweet Candy Factory was so out of the ordinary, so different from his usual routine, that he hadn't really believed it would ever happen. Their factory had never hosted any contest before, and this year he was finally competing himself. The only problem was that Logan didn't have much experience with other kids. Sure, he played Name That Cloud on the lawn with the workers' kids sometimes, but most of them were much younger. The factory's annual picnic used to bring people from all over Springhaven to the grounds, but it had been so long since the factory held a picnic that he barely remembered them. Every time he asked his parents why they'd stop holding picnics, their answers were always vague. Too busy, too hard to control the crowd, that sort of thing. Eventually, he stopped asking. Up till now, his life's steady routine hadn't wavered much. His only outings were short trips into town to visit the local candy shops, an occasional checkup at the doctor or dentist, and the family's annual trip to the confectionery Association's convention. Not that daily life at the factory didn't bring surprises, it did, every day. But he usually knew what to expect. A candy machine that had ground to a halt, or clogged irrigation tunnel on the farm, the labels for the pink sour fingers getting stuck on the blue sour fingers container, or some other issue that could usually be fixed with a squirt or two of oil. It only makes it only if only making friends were as easy. And so that's a little bit of the opening of the story as he is preparing for his day. As the son of a candy maker and a lineage of candy making contest winners, he is definitely feeling pressure, but also excitement to kind of make his own stamp on the candy making world. As the day opens, he's going to meet 3 other children who are also participating in the competition. There are ultimately 28 others. They are at different candy shop locations, and they are all going to converge later in one location as part of the story. The characters that he meets, particularly that are going to influence him, are Miles, Daisy, and Philip, and they will be participating in the competition and learning from his particular factory. As readers will soon discover that the story is actually going to be told from multiple perspectives. Logan's perspective ends with him kind of exploring the factory at night with Miles, and they sort of are uncovering some suspicious activities and things that they hear. From there, the story actually begins over from Miles's perspective. So Miles is going to recount a traumatic day when he sees a young girl that he believes drowns, and though her body was never found, it didn't appear. A lot of other people in the area didn't seem so concerned. He's actually been haunted by this day ever since, and he makes a lot of comments about the afterlife, and he starts building this world for this girl that he didn't know, who he believes has died. Miles also kind of speaks backwards at times. This is a skill that he really developed after this traumatic event. After Miles's point of view, we're going to switch again to Daisy. And again, the story is going to start over, but from Daisy's perspective. Readers will learn that Daisy is actually part of a spy network. Her family business is in the spying and sort of uncovering secrets. And so she has been employed to uncover what the secret ingredient is to the Sweets family's chocolate recipe. Daisy's own somewhat unusual and tumultuous background is communicated, and her perspective ends on that same sort of suspicious encounter in the factory at night. And then last but not least, we are going to get Philip's perspective. Again, going back to the beginning of the story, but from his perspective, he is the youngest son of a very highly successful businessman. His brother has kind of perfected this art of being able to win through any means necessary. And he's kind of left Philip a field guide about those things that can help him. Philip is determined to win this candy making competition for personal pride, but also he has a desire to get back at Logan for something that had happened 5 years prior. As the story unfolds, readers will learn why Philip is so upset and what it is that had taken place 5 years earlier with Logan that kind of leads him to the situation. We'll also see a lot of character development in Philip overall. Each character does have their own sort of character arc as they are developing. Daisy is trying to kind of decide, does she want to stay a spy? Is she going to kind of change? Why is she doing the things she's doing? She starts asking who are the people that are hiring them. Miles, he's going to kind of work through his character arc with the young girl who died or drowned, supposedly, that's really been infecting him. Logan also with the idea of wanting to win the candy making competition, but maybe some things are more important than winning a competition. But I would say overall, the biggest one in the story is actually going to be Philip. So he's the one I think who has the most profound learning experience. As a little bit of a spoiler, much of what Philip learns that he believed about Logan is actually false. And so some of the interactions that he had early on in the story when they had met when they were younger, he thinks that Philip believes that he had been kicked out of the factory. But you find out later that that is actually a lie his father had told him. So when Philip then discovers that his father plans to take over the candy factory that is owned by the Sweets, Philip really becomes determined to win in order to help Logan's family. So we see a complete shift in him from wanting to get back at Logan to then trying to preserve and protect the family's business. Philip does share his plans with his father and kind of makes a deal that if he can win this competition, that his father will stop. He also shares the information with Miles and Logan and Daisy about what their plans are. The four ultimately end up working together, kind of revealing their own personal struggles, but then they also kind of work together to create the harmonic candy that ends up, as a spoiler, winning the competition. Also, as a spoiler in the story, Miles discovers that Daisy is the mysterious girl that he thought had drowned years ago, but she was actually just kind of training for her spy work, and that's why she had never come up for air, and he assumed that she had drowned. If you go to my website at holdingsteadfastreaders.com, you're going to get a few extra details that are not mentioned here in this particular review, a few quotes that I think were worth pulling out. Ultimately, too, while this story is really centered on the children, it really focuses on the children. I do love that there are strong parental and adult figures in the story. You have Henry, Max, Reggie, and even Logan's parents. These are positive adults and parental influences through the children throughout the story and offering guidance, mainly in the candy making competition, but also in things that kind of transfer over to friendships and other parts of life. Parents are going to appreciate that this story is clean, fun, and engaging for readers, while also providing great themes and discussions of how we often perceive people or situations before we truly get to know them or understand the context of what's taking place. Additionally, there are a lot of messages, obviously, about the importance of teamwork and the joy of working together with others rather than just simply being alone, and that ultimately teamwork is what helps bring about great success. So, while not directly tied to scripture, there is a lot of supportive biblical truths that really orient our readers away from being prideful and selfish, selfish ambition, bitterness, but actually points them to this idea of compassion, understanding, and the building of community. So hopefully that is helpful to you as parents trying to find great books for your children to read. And I hope that you'll join me next week for another book review.